when to progress from H workouts to G-based workouts. G-based workouts typically will require the use of a squat rack. And you'll know when you're ready to progress to the squat rack when you've kind of outgrown your home weight. So typically with clients, if they're doing dumbbell squats with anything like 35s, 40 pounds, or perhaps upwards of 50 pounds, that's when you know you're ready for something like a barbell. If you're doing Romanian deadlifts with dumbbells and you're using 20s and they feel light, you're using 25s, 30s, that's when you'd be ready for a barbell Romanian deadlift. Also too with hip thrusting. Hip thrusting is a bit of a different one because the room for improvement with dumbbells, there's a huge room for sort of improvement from going from dumbbells. Like a 50-pound dumbbell will seem kind of heavy, but it's not uncommon for me to work with clients who are doing, weights in a significant amount of weight, much higher than a dumbbell. So the ratio of those hip thrusting weights with a barbell versus the ratio of squatting weights to dumbbell tends to be a lot higher with the barbell. So all that to say, when you're ready, if you've outgrown your weights and it's time to look into that squat rack, amazing. With squat racks, there's several different options. This here is what we call a half rack. Why is it a half rack? Because it only has two of the poles. A full rack will have a pole here and then a pole here, and you're sort of inside this big square shaped. Which is better? It doesn't really matter, to be honest. I had a full rack and I went to my half rack because it's much more space efficient. I really, really like that. And then the other thing too is with the half rack, a full rack will have safety pins that go right across. With the half rack, you're gonna have safety pins that just come out and kind of hang like these do. These are really, really sturdy. Like I could sit on this if I needed to, but ultimately, in anyone that I'm training, these are pretty much here for decoration. I've never used them. Only once in my 5 years of personal training in the gym have I ever had a client who didn't make it on an exercise. I was there to spot. But if you're doing workouts from home, you should never be working out with a weight where you're nervous to make it all the way up. You always want to work at maybe 85 or 90% of that max ratio. And then the third type of squat rack is if you don't have high ceilings. So when you're buying a squat rack, you want to measure out the space and make sure that everything fits first and foremost, which I learned the hard way. But you want to make sure that you have high enough ceilings for the rack that you're purchasing. There are racks in different companies. One of them I know is Iron Bull in Canada. Shout out to Amber. They'll make an 81-inch rack, so you don't necessarily need those 8-foot high ceilings, whereas this is, I believe, a 92-inch rack. But you also have what's called a squat stand. And with a squat stand, there's no chin-up bar at the top. There's no connection at the top. You can get them with that, but for the purpose of this video, a typical squat stand would go to about 70 inches, so it can fit in. It'll have a 4x4 base on the floor, but the nice thing about it is they can be stored pretty much anywhere, and they're easily movable. With this squat rack here, I can take this bar out, and I can also take the pins out and I can fold it into the wall, which is pretty cool. I never do that because this is a gym and this is what this is here for, but if I ever needed to, or if you ever needed that space, it can be done quite easily. So now, when using a barbell, it can be an intimidating thing for sure. You want to progress from your dumbbell, so a typical barbell will be around 45 pounds. So keep that in mind. If you're doing squats with, let's say, 40 pounds for 12 reps, then you're definitely ready for a barbell, and that barbell is typically 45 pounds. So start with just the bar and then progressively load from there for the same amount of reps. So if it's a 40-pound dumbbell with squats for 12 reps, start with the barbell, 45 pounds for 12 reps, and then see how it goes. The nice thing with a barbell, it's very easy to increase the weights on. You don't need a huge set of dumbbells. If you have a barbell and you have a squat rack, 5-pound plates, great. I recommend one set of 5-pound plates per side, one set of 2.5s, one set of 10s, and then when you're ready to up the level of strength, then you can go for a set of 25s. And then with that, what about the height? In terms of the height, if I'm doing squats or lunges, I'll set the bar right up to around my collarbone, maybe just below that. And it's better to have it lower than higher, because higher is where you're going to run into problems. You won't have a problem if it's too low. So this barbell here is set up too low for me. You'll see it's quite a bit lower than my clavicle, but that's okay. And then what I'm going to do is place my hands on the bar. Most bars will have this middle point, so that you know where to place your neck. So I place my hands on the bar, then I'm gonna step under. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, make sure my neck is in that middle point as best as I can. I'll step off. You know that you're centered into the bar if the bar doesn't come off on one side. So if I'm over here like this and I step off, see how the bar tilts? That's how I know I'm uneven. And the bar will give you that feedback. So I'm going to step off from here, just have my feet shoulder width apart. I'm going to stay within my safety pins here, and then I'm going to lower down for my squat. Drive up just like so, lower down for my squat. The other option, let's say it's a back lunge, and then step up, back lunge, step up. Then when you're done, this is a big pointer. You want to take that bar, make sure you check one side then the other side. It's kind of like parking a car. You tap one side, tap the other, and then let it drop. And that's the best way. So when you step in and out with the bar, you have that 1 foot forward, you step off, and then you set and prep, and then when you're done, bring that foot forward, tap, tap, and then place that bar down. Once you know you got the tap, tap, then you're ready to bring that bar down. So that is pretty much a brief overview of how to start with the squat rack and do so comfortably with that barbell in terms of where to set it up, in terms of how high, how to step it off safely, how to put it back. Remember, these are typically for decoration. They're great to have. You do want to set them up high enough in case anything ever happens, but typically you're not going to perform with a weight that would be up that high. And then from there, all of the exercises in terms of your squats, your lunges, your deadlifts, your hip thrusts, your bent over rows, all form and technique is essentially the same. The difference is instead of holding weights in your hands, in one hand in each, now you got the bar in front. And the whole difference between using a barbell versus using dumbbells, because you've outgrown the dumbbells, like I said at the beginning of this video, you've outgrown the dumbbells that you have, and now it's time to load up with a barbell, which is much easier, and also too, the progression to build up is, the potential is far, far greater. The last thing I will say is if you're hip thrusting, and you plan to hip thrust with a barbell, two things you want, and I highly recommend working to hip thrust with a barbell because not only is it going to be great for some aesthetic changes to your body, but the stronger you get with your barbell hip thrust, the stronger you're going to get with your back squats, with your back lunges as well. So everything's going to kind of build up from that sense, and so you're just going to maximize the amount of results that you can see. But you definitely want a squat sponge. You can find them on Amazon anywhere from 30 to 40 bucks, or any fitness equipment store. For the most part, this is going to help save your thighs. And then the other thing is what we call a bumper plate. So if you just Google bumper plates, what you're going to see with a 10-pound plate, a standard 10-pound plate, the diameter is not very big. So when you go to put this on your barbell, and let's say you're going to be hip thrusting, it's going to be very hard to get that plate onto your, get that barbell onto your hips. If you get a 10-pound bumper plate, still weighs 10 pounds, but the diameter is going to be about the same as a 45-pound plate. So do I have any 45-pound plates? 45-pound plate here. So you see the diameter is much bigger for this, but the nice thing is if you get 10-pound bumper plates, you don't have to hip thrust a significant amount of weight to get started with your barbell hip thrust. So I do suggest if you're buying a squat rack, if you're investing in the G workouts, if you're starting with them, get 10-pound bumper plates with the big diameter, and then from there, it's really easy to load on plates after that. So you can just slide your 10s on, you can even slide your 25s and your 45s on with that, and it makes things a lot more accessible. So with that said, squat rack, multiple types. Just to recap, I'm a big fan of the half rack. Squat stands are great if you don't plan on doing any chin-ups. Full racks, also really great, but they do take up a lot more space. And then progressing with the bar, stepping in, stepping out with the bar, how high to put it, awesome. Loading up the plates and weights, just start if you're doing 40 pounds or 35 pounds for whatever exercise. Let's say you're doing dumbbell deadlifts with 25s, that's 50 pounds. So when you go to do it with a barbell, you know you can do it with a 45-pound, no problem. You progress up that way. And then for barbell hip thrusts, a little bit trickier. Make sure you get a squat sponge, and I highly recommend those 10-pound bumper plates.